Hello and welcome to Salubrious Skin with Dr. Irene podcast. This podcast is all about how to attain healthier skin. You may be struggling with a skin condition such as psoriasis or eczema or acne, or perhaps a condition that causes the skin to become unhealthy, such as PCOS or irritable bowel or Crohn's disease. Regardless of what your condition is, healthy skin is attained by having a healthy body. So my mission is about bringing a huge array of experts to your attention in various areas of health. I hope you find this information knowledgeable and insightful and helpful for your specific journey in having better health. Remember to always connect with us through Facebook at Dr. Irene Prantelos, Psoriasis and Healthy Skin. You can email me at info@salubre.com.au. I hope you enjoy the show, and please feel free to give us any sort of insight into what you feel you need to hear in future episodes. Hello and welcome to Salubrious Skin with Dr. Irene. Today I'm joined by Maddie Race. Now, Maddie joined us for episode 4, and we covered everything about children's lunch boxes and how to make them more delicious and healthier. And so I thought to have Maddie back, because she's such a great person to speak to and has so much wisdom about what's healthy and what's not necessarily healthy where we might think it is, and more so to talk about the documentary called That Sugar Film. And Maddie Race is a certified health coach, and she's also one of the ambassadors of the film. So welcome, Maddie.
Thank you so much. Good morning, and how are you?
I'm good. I'm excited about today because, you know, sugar is so toxic to me. And, you know, it's one of those things I often tell patients to reduce or be mindful of when they're consuming it. And sometimes, you know, people don't necessarily know where it's located and whether they are eating it. And if they are, what are the replacements and so forth. And I thought, who else better to dispel myths and, you know, identify what's real and what's not as far as food's concerned, because this is your work. This is what you do on a daily basis.
Yeah, it is. And it's such an important topic as well, because we are surrounded, unfortunately, by sugar. And unfortunately, it's hidden in a lot of places. So, and the great thing I loved about That Sugar Film was that it was a movie made by Damon and his partner Zoe, that it was a journey to show people how much sugar is actually hidden in perceived everyday healthy food. And it wasn't that he was going to go out and eat, you know, loads of lollies and drink loads of soft drink. It was actually, you know, what he was eating is normal food that a lot of people eat, and a lot of food that's found in people's pantries. So, and as a health coach, I do come across a lot of it in, you know, families in their pantries, and then that their shopping habits, that they don't realise that they're actually, you know, buying food that's unfortunately laden with sugar. And, you know, the manufacturers are tricky. They do this deliberately because they want sales.
It tastes good, right?
Yeah, it does taste good. So,
you know, when I was pregnant, I don't eat many carbs, but I was really, you know, I had a massive aversion to vegetables. And typically my breakfast is turkey with vegetables. I know it sounds a little bit weird, but my body can process carbs very well. So in this process of being pregnant, I was really craving carbohydrates, and I was looking for a cereal with no sugar. And do you know that's impossible? That's impossible. It has rice malt, or it's got fruit concentrate, or raw sugar. And I'm like, okay, these are in health food stores. I'm thinking people that are going to health food stores are more likely to have sugar intolerances, possibly. And I found one in Surrey Hills, Apple and Sage it's called. But now, because I was pregnant now like 3 years ago, it's not available anymore. And I'm assuming perhaps maybe there weren't the sales there. So maybe you know, communities do dictate perhaps what manufacturers put in. But I struggled to find one box. sugar.
It's so sad, and it's and even things like I discovered when I started to get really into finding out about sugar, I found that even the difference between brands, so the difference between Wheat Bix versus Vitabrits. So my children, they eat Wheat Bix. That's what they have for breakfast, and then they add their fruit to it. And I found even in Wheat Bix there was added sugar, whereas Vitabrits didn't have added sugar. So it was half the sugar amount. So I've got a teenage son who in some days can eat 8 Wheat Bix or Vitabrits in a day. So if, 3 biscuits has, 4 grams of sugar, which is ridiculous because it's just a wheat product, that he would be consuming a ridiculous amount. So he could have been consuming up to, about 9 teaspoons of sugar without even realising, and that's a perceived health food. So it is very difficult, and unfortunately, like I touched on earlier, is that manufacturers spend millions of dollars on finding this so-called bliss point, and that's where, when you're eating something, it's got that perfect point where your palate goes, yeah, that is unreal, and give me more of that, and it sends all those hormones and those chemicals up to your brain, and it wreaks havoc on our systems. And unfortunately it's harder on kids than us adults, or those who don't have as much willpower.
So can we talk a little bit, I guess I'm one of those that has willpower because I haven't touched sugar since I was 15, but can we touch a little bit about what the film's about, and then we'll delve into all these little tricks that we can sort of identify.
Yeah, sure. So the film is about Damon's journey, and he basically decided to have a diet that was it was crazy. He was going to eat 40 teaspoons of sugar a day. Well, not up to about 40 teaspoons of sugar. And he was governed by a panel of experts. So we had, a doctor, a dietitian, and a pathologist that were all watching the journey, and they were measuring his bloods and everything like that. So basically what he was doing, it was like I mentioned earlier, it wasn't about the fact that he was going to eat heaps of ice cream or lollies or all that sort of stuff. It was basically just everyday items. So he would start his day with breakfast with like a bowl of Just Right with some milk. But when he started to look at the things like, recommended daily, the serving sizes, I should say, say one serving size of Just Right is about a cup. There would have been about, I can't remember exactly, but it was about, 4 teaspoons of sugar just in 1 cup of Just Right. So a male that goes and eats just 1 cup of, cereal, I know my husband would not just eat 1 cup. That wouldn't be enough for him. So you could pretty much double that amount. And by the time you add your milk into it, and then he would have a glass of apple juice with it for argument's sake. And, it could have been a good apple juice, non-organic or whatever the case may be. So all of a sudden, even before he started his day, he would have been up to about 15 teaspoons of sugar. And then it continued on day after day. So it was things like, be it honey soy chicken, Asian foods, not always takeaway foods. It was, food that you could make at home with, be it ready-made sauces and things like that, noodles, so many different foods. And he did that for a period of 30 days, and he was measured during that time. His bloods were measured at the beginning and then during that time. And quite quickly, he recognised, and the doctors were quite surprised, how quickly his body was developing signs of fatty liver disease because of the excess sugar that he was eating, and how quickly he was putting on weight around his waist. So that's all your visceral fat started to build up because there was an excess of sugar in his bloodstream, more than what the liver could cope with. So when there's too much sugar in your liver, it spills out into your bloodstream because, the insulin can't deal with it. So it sends it back out into your bloodstream. Basically his diet went from, minimal vegetables, minimal fruit, minimal whole foods to a diet with highly processed foods. And as we know, and you touched on it earlier, that we've got, when you start eating carbs, they behave in the same way as what, a sugar cube would, once you start to, digest that food. So, it was quite a fascinating film, and it is a film that I strongly recommend all families to watch, because it's real, and it shows you just how easily, illnesses can occur from,
and so quickly
from
too.
just eating.
Just 30 days.
So quickly, yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it was even the brain fog that kicked in for him, the motivation levels, how they dropped, all those associated behaviours that are attached with sugar, unfortunately.
That's things we hear every day as practitioners ourselves.
Yeah.
My mental clarity is not great. I'm tired all the time.
Yes.
I'm not sleeping. My emotions are down. Putting on weight. I don't know why. All these things I hear, and I'm sure you hear every single day. And I definitely think everyone should watch it, of all ages, because I think it was great that he didn't go down the realm of, oh, let's just eat all this rubbish. I'm going to try and eat the options, and still the ramifications were signs of a fatty liver. So where can people catch a screening or view this film?
Yeah, so you can log on to That Sugar Film website. There's ambassadors all around Australia that are always organising screenings or doing educational information nights and things like that. It was also on SBS, and it was on iView, but obviously that's expired now. You can buy the DVD. It's available at the ABC stores, and I think I've seen it in, your Targets and your Big W's. And you might catch it, online if it's there. But the best way is, go through the website, thatsugarfilm.com, and then you can find out, if you are interested in knowing more about screenings, you can contact an ambassador. And there's, like I said, there's ambassadors all around Australia that can organise a screening direct, or I can do that as well. Yeah. It's a great film. No matter how many times you watch it, you still learn. You think, oh wow.
I was fascinated with the fact that there was two schools of thought, and one was that fat was really bad, and one was sugar was really bad, and the person that was pushing the fat won, and we saw an era of fat is so bad, and as a result all these manufacturers upped their sugar levels in their product to make their product taste nicer. So why is sugar bad? What is it, and why is it so bad? Everyone it's been completely saturated that it is bad, but I think sometimes people struggle with why is it so bad.
Yeah, so the way we see sugar, so like this tiny little sugar film, it's not natural. By the time it gets to this little cube, it's so heavily processed to the point where your body doesn't recognise it to go, well, okay, what do I do with this? The enzymes, the digestive system, and all that sort of thing. So the sugar's bad because when you consume it, and you consume it in a huge amount, it gets to your liver, then it starts to, like I mentioned earlier, it starts to wreak havoc with your insulin and all the effects that it has on your system. So basically, it's not about demonising sugar, in natural sugar that you find in your fruits. And you do hear a lot about fructose and how a lot of people are on, fructose-free diets and all the rest of it. This is purely about the fact about, these sugars, the added sugars that you find in everyday foods. So that's why it's bad. It's like a synthetic. So you're basically consuming something that has no nutritional benefit whatsoever. That's why it's bad. So the effect that it has on your system.
So when people are looking out for sugars, is it that they're looking for just the word sugar, or any sugar, say it be, like I said, maple syrup, honey, raw sugar, coconut sugar, there's all these other things that are kind of available. Is sugar just sugar and is treated the same way, or is it the fact that it's the refined aspect that creates the problem?
Yeah, look, sugar is sugar, and it will behave the same in your system. However, there are different sugars you find in your milks and your natural sugars that you find in your fruit. It is all going to wreak havoc in your body if you are eating a diet high in sugar. I suppose if you're looking at minimising your sugar intake, which we all should be mindful of, being connected with what we're eating, you should be looking at making sure that your diet's more in whole food and that it's not highly processed food. So that's where, you're going to come in and go, okay, well, I know that my diet is not highly processed in that I'm eating real food that's seen the sun, food that's been grown, and all that sort of thing. So, we're surrounded by sugar and we don't even realise that it's everywhere that we're eating it. So it is a real issue, and it's probably the message that I take away and that I talk to a lot of clients about, and a lot of people that have viewed the film, is that the film really highlights the fact that there is a huge need to make sure that your diet is really clean and that you're eating as many whole foods as possible, and trying to stay away from all your processed foods. And that's probably the message that it shows at the end of the film, is that we are putting ourselves in danger because we are surrounded by just food in boxes, and it's making us sicker. And that's what it's highlighting. So for the normal everyday person, yeah.
So what's a normal amount of sugar that should be consumed? And I guess that's taking into consideration all the sugars that you just mentioned, so the ones that are in milk and fruit. So how much should an average person, and also perhaps a child, have? Because then I think you don't really know how much they should.
No, that's right. So the recommended daily intake by the World Health Organization for children 0 up to about 3 years old, you're looking at 3 teaspoons of sugar a day. So, that's, 3. So that, which isn't a lot. So, and then when you get to...
Sorry, I just wanted to ask, because my little boy's 2.5.
Yeah, right.
So how much sugar is in a milk? So what would that say you give them a cup of milk, say 250 mils. Would you know how much sugar is in that?
So it depended upon the milk that you choose. So, I need to stand corrected. Young babies should have 0 teaspoons of sugars up to from 3 years old. That's when it starts to get to 3 teaspoons. Sorry, okay. I missed it. So there's so much going on in my brain right now. It's like, I've got to get all this information out. Depending upon the milk that you choose, when you read a label. So 1 teaspoon of sugar is 4.2 grams. Okay,
that's good to know.
That's the key. And when I teach this to children, I say, as long as you know your 4 times tables, you should be able to work out how much sugar is in the food that you're eating.
Okay.
So basically, 1 teaspoon of sugar is 4 grams. Lactose is about 100 grams of a teaspoon. So this is where it gets quite scientific. So if you're reading a label on your milk carton and it says, it'll be broken down. I don't have milk here in front of me. I could grab it, but it'll say, per serve, which is a standard 250 ml. It could be that there's so many grams of sugar. And then you've got to take away the element of lactose in that, because it is natural sugar. And then that's when you start to determine what the added sugar is in milk. So it seems quite crazy that, milk might have sugar added to it.
So they add sugar to it as well?
You'd have to check to see. Like I've seen sometimes in your, fancy perceived, rice milks or, or your macadamia nut milks and all those really popular milks that are coming on board now. They're a real trap for people because they think that they're eating quite healthy. And then they're unfortunately, they're added with sugar. So your natural milks, I haven't got any direct information for that, but
That's
yeah.
okay. I think to know the 4 grams of sugar, because they do on the nutritional panel, they do break it down. So
they do break it down.
Sugar line. So 4 grams, 1 teaspoon. So 0 to 3 should be no added sugar, but then
Correct.
3 to, what's the next?
Yeah, it's your young children, so your 3-year-olds up to, you know, I suppose your preteens. You're looking at your 3 to no more than 6 teaspoons of sugar a day. And then from an adult version perspective, you're looking at 6 teaspoons, no more than 9 teaspoons a day. So unfortunately, those levels can be easily reached, especially when you start to look at lunch boxes and things like that.
Because I see a lot of patients that are pregnant and they all do the glucose tolerance test.
Yes.
And recently one of my patients, she's a nurse, and she goes, you know, there's 15 grams of sugar in the drink that they have to drink. And she goes to me, you know what, Irene, I could easily do that. She goes, Frito Frog has 5 teaspoons. I could easily have a couple of those a day. And then she was just pinpointing, and she was actually only talking about sweets.
Yeah.
What you're saying is, wow, it's actually interspersed into all this packaged food.
Oh, absolutely.
So drinking this sugar drink of 15 teaspoons really isn't that much. And I guess that's probably why they do the test, because, you know, it is so easily to consume so much more than what the recommended daily dose is.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And the scary part is you just think, you know, I've got little examples here. So say, for instance, you've got these popular little sippy pouches for children. And you see, you know, these everywhere with children. You see them in lunch boxes. Now, this is an organic blueberry yogurt. You know, when you look at the packet, you think, oh, yeah, that looks really healthy. It looks really clean. But unfortunately, there's 9.9 grams of sugar just in that. So we're looking at 10 grams. So we're looking at 3 teaspoons of sugar just in this alone. So, and that's just a snack that children eat, particularly babies. Like you see them, little toddlers in prams, sipping on a frozen one of these. So we just need to be really careful.
You know, I went visiting to a relative once with my little boy, and you know, I'm very aware of sugar, so I don't give him anything like that. And she had some, because she's got a little boy as well, she had some yogurt in a pouch like that. And she goes, oh, it's organic, it's really good. And I kind of felt bad to look at the label. So I was like, oh, sure, okay, if he wants it, let's give it to him. And he actually really liked it. But he didn't eat it all.
Of course.
Just had a little bit of it, and then he kind of, you know, didn't want any more. And she goes, here, take it. He can have the rest at home. And as soon as I got home, I looked, and it was like, I think the second or third ingredient was sugar. And I said to my husband, you can eat it, because I'm not giving that to our son.
Yeah.
You know, because he did it. And I'm trying to create, you know, taste buds that he doesn't necessarily know what sugar is yet. And I know he will. I know he's going to go to parties, and I know they're going to be, you know, completely saturated with those foods. But while I'm in control of the situation, I'll try
absolutely
minimize, you know, the addiction, because that's the issue, I think, around sugar, isn't it? It's such an addictive ingredient in our food.
It's a sweet poison, unfortunately. It's they say that it's as addictive as, you know, the likes of cocaine and heroin, so, which is quite concerning, and that's why so many people have such an issue when they're you know, when they're trying to wean themselves off sugar, and like I said, it's harder for children. They don't understand the whys. But for adults, when you start to really look at, you know, why should I be not eating as much sugar, and, you know, and they start to notice that, you know, they're losing weight and they're losing that brain fog and all that sort of thing. You know, as long as you're motivated, you can get yourself off it and wean yourself off it. But it is quite difficult. And unfortunately, your brain sends all those naughty messages and chemicals to say to you, come on, you can go and get another, you know, milkshake, or, you know, look at that piece of cake, it looks delicious. So even just by looking at those foods, the signals have already started. So
is recognizing all this stuff. They're going, wow, this is, I literally feel all these things. I really do want to stop eating sugar, although obviously the addictive component is making things difficult. What sort of steps can they make, or can they take rather, to get towards I don't know, either reducing the sugar or eliminating it potentially? Like, what can they do?
Yeah, well, look, there's one or two things. You can either go cold turkey if you're strong enough, and sometimes that's the best way of just saying, no, I'm just not touching it. Or you can do it the slow way and hope that you'll stick to it. So basically, you know, cravings can be easily combated by drinking a big glass of water and then going, okay, I don't need that. So you can do it that way. But I find that if it's a real issue for you, you're better off just going, right, I'm just going to start reading every label and I'm just going to find a better solution. So say, for instance, if you love to cook your dinners and you love throwing in those ready-made sauces, you need to start going, okay, well, let me see that, you know, I've got one here, like a honey barbecue marinade. Now, in that marinade alone, there's like, say, 10 serves in the bottle. So when you read a label, you go, oh, okay, that's 11 grams of sugar. You think, oh, that's not too bad, but what you've got to look at is how many serves. So that's per serve. So, you know, that would be one serve is 17 grams. So we're talking about, like, it would be 1.5 tablespoons of sauce. Now, I don't know many people that go into, when they cook, they would pour nearly the whole bottle, if not half, onto a chicken or whatever the case may be, and then cook that on the barbecue and serve it with a salad and think that they're doing really well.
Yeah.
They're the trap. So I would go, okay, well, let me find something. Let me find a better marinade that I can put on my chicken so that I know that it's got no sugar in it. So all of a sudden you've gone from a sugar-laden meal to, you know, a meal with some nice fresh herbs, bit of salt and pepper, a bit of paprika, bit of lemon juice, and you've got just as nice a meal. So it's doing it that way and making the smarter choices that is going to help you along the way. And you've just got to start loving to cook. You've got to get in the kitchen. You can't. You will not be able to give up sugar if you hate cooking, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, it's. I don't even know if you have to love cooking or just even love being healthy. You know, I'm not.
Yes.
I don't really love cooking, to be honest. But you know, it's like I've got to eat, and I want to be healthy, and for me to be healthy is so important. So I don't see where I don't even say there's a choice. It's just kind of what I need to do. And I think one thing with sugar as well, it's very inflammatory. So people tend to get really fluidy, you know, they can't put their rings on, or their joints get a bit stiff, or, you know, their legs, they say, you know, a lot of women will say, you know, my legs have gotten bigger, and obviously the impact with the hormones and stuff. So what are kind of some of the sneaky products? You've already mentioned a couple of sneaky products, because I think, you know, marketing at the end of the day, it's massive competition. Shelves are full of competitors. So they need to make their packaging stand out. And typically the words natural and organic are usually a striking point for many of us, because we're thinking we do want to get healthy. So when someone picks up a box or a jar of something, what specifically are they looking for, or what are they looking to avoid?
Yeah, so basically what I do is when I go to the supermarket, I'll look at the ingredient list and have a look at, you know, if the word sugar, fructose, maltose, anything ending in OSE appears in any of the ingredients, you know that there's going to be added sugar in the actual product. So, and then dependent upon the order. So as we know, the order that those ingredients are placed are the order of the greatest amount of that particular item. So for argument's sake, this marinade, the first product is tomatoes. Then we've got water, and then the third ingredient is sugar. So that would ring alarm bells right away for me. So you've got to just become a bit of a detective when it comes to the labels. And then I would just go, no, that I will put that down. I would not buy that, and I would not eat that. So the biggest traps are anything low fat. So unfortunately, when the low fat foods came into the world, and it became this massive hype about low fat, and I think it was all surrounded when President Eisenhower had his heart attack. and they said it was because of the fat in his diet. So it started this revolution about saying that fat is bad, and then they all of a sudden stripped all the fat out of all foods. Unfortunately, when they stripped all the fat out of foods, they realised that the foods weren't tasting as nice, and they're going, well, hang on a minute, this is not going to sell, so how are we going to fix this? So they ended up adding sugar. So any of your low-fat variety foods, I'm sorry, but they're all bad, and they're not all bad. I shouldn't say all bad. You need to. It's an alarm, so it's got a red light flashing on it. So read your label and just have a look at what is in there and how much sugar they're actually adding in to make that particular item palatable. So yeah, your yogurts are a big trap. I really struggle finding yogurts that are not laden in sugar, and I just stick to the Greek variety, and then I add the flavorings, and that makes it the best way. I'm in control. I don't let anyone else be in control of the sugar amount that you want to add or what your sweetness is going to be.
Yeah, I know, definitely. I think you can change your taste buds if you feel you need that sweetness to eat your meals because you get so used to it. You definitely can change. I remember when we got married, because like I said, I haven't had sugar since I was 15, and my dad was going on and on about our wedding cake, how delicious it was. And it was, those typical chalk, I don't know, fudge, whatever.
Oh, the mud cake, yeah.
I just said, make whatever you want. I don't care as long as people like it. And because he was going on and on about it, I was so curious. So my mum had bought some home, and I grabbed a teaspoon and I put it in my mouth. So this was when I was 30. So now we're talking 15 years of no sugar, no added sugar, obviously fruit I have. And in a second, I spat it out, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is disgusting. How did people eat this? Like, it was just, I felt like I just put a teaspoon of sugar in my mouth. And my dad was just looking at me laughing, going, what's wrong with you? You can't even eat one teaspoon. And I was like, how do you eat a slice? Like, that is disgusting. It's not even tasteful. It's just sugar. So right. I think you definitely can. And I personally don't look at anything and go, wow, I really want that. I think you just get used to it. So anyone who thinks that they can move forward, it's absolutely right. Like you said, your body is very sneaky. It kind of will make you think you need it, but you don't. Like you said, drink loads of water and go for a walk, maybe eat something else, have a salad or some leftovers or something. And 6 weeks is usually the period of time it takes for your body to get used to it. So I think cold turkey, in my opinion, is a better way.
I absolutely. I agree 100%. Yeah.
I just think.
And there's a reason why. Yeah.
Yeah. So
go ahead, sorry.
That's all right. You go.
Yeah. And I think there's a reason why your body is craving the sugars as well. Like, you may not be feeding it enough protein and, your healthy fats. So you're not giving your body the right fuel to get you going through the day. So that's when the sugar is, a lot of people walk out of the door and don't have breakfast, and then they'll just have a cup of coffee, and then 10:30 hits and they'll want that, that sugar hit, because the brain's going, hey, you've not given me anything, so give me some sugar and that'll wake you up. So it's because of that, the whole diet, that sugar's the one part and the one facet behind it, but it's how we're eating and how we're not eating a balanced diet, and that we're not filling ourselves up with the right fuel. It's, that classic scenario of, what fuel if you put the wrong fuel in the car, it's not going to operate. So and our body, is like that as well.
And I think, just to throw another thing into the mix, which I kind of shouldn't complicate it, but adrenal fatigue is a big thing. And I think a lot of people eat the sugar and the caffeine to compensate adrenal fatigue. So one thing I always tell patients that have adrenal fatigue: no sugar and no caffeine. So that's what it injures your adrenals, doesn't it? I mean, sugar and caffeine. Yeah. So I think, I think really to get the assistance during this process is probably the easiest way to get the success. Definitely people can do it on their own, but I think having that guidance with someone who can direct you and support you through that process is in my opinion the best way to go. So if you have loads of resources on your website. I know that, maddirace.com.au. You have lots of books and recipes, and you're also obviously a certified health coach, so you're equipped to assist people in this process and to help them get through this addiction, as serious as addiction as anything else really when it's and you also mentioned private screenings if they want one, if a gym is listening, or a community centre, or schools. Great, this would be great to get into schools, so highlight the importance of clever choices and identifying the hidden sugars. Contact Maddie for these sort of screenings. She's happy obviously to do that. And anything else you think we need to know? I mean, we've covered a lot of things, but
we have covered a lot. I suppose I just want to give listeners something tangible to walk away with. You did mention schools. Now, there is an awesome school action toolkit that schools can actually purchase. Off the top of my head, I think it's about $120 that they can purchase, and then it becomes a really good item for the curriculum. There's all these fantastic curriculum links, and they can take the education into the classroom, because anything like this, education is key. So there's so many schools doing amazing things out there with kitchen garden programs and, water on waste and all that sort of thing. And this all links in beautifully. So if there's schools that are interested in knowing more, there is a fantastic school action toolkit that is packed full of resources that will help kids and teachers understand the impacts of sugar. And they also, that sugar film can also organise corporate wellness programs as well. So there's that you can connect via that sugar film website. And the other thing is, if you're looking at, there's an Unreal app. So if you're looking at going to the shops and you don't know, you're all a bit miffed about where to start, there's a fantastic app called That Sugar app. And basically when you open it up, you can actually scan barcodes in and it will tell you exactly how much sugar there is. So say for instance, I've got like a Powerade, and this is great for kids. Kids love it because it's a device and it's like talking to us. So it'll scan this Powerade in and it'll basically tell me, I don't know whether this is reversed or not, but it tells me that there's 8.25 teaspoons of sugar in this particular drink. So I know there's stacks of kids that run off the footy oval or the soccer oval and they go straight to the canteen and buy something like this. They think that it's cool. And you see a lot of football players now dropping this because they recognise that it's an issue and it's not good for their body. So this app is fantastic, and it can actually, you can add it to your daily, you can keep a daily food diary and you can say, I ate this, and then it'll keep you, give you a tally, and it'll tell you how much sugar you've eaten today based on what you've scanned in or what you've typed in. So that's a fantastic resource, and that's a free app. So you can download it, anyone can download it. And it's just, a really handy guide. It's called That Sugar app.
Okay.
So just That Sugar, and it'll come up. So it's you'll see it online. And obviously there's books associated with the film. There's a guide that you can buy that's available in all good bookstores. This is a fantastic book that's got heaps of recipes in there as well, and it's a bit of a guide to showing you how to transform into a whole food diet for those who are a little bit unsure of, if they don't want to go down the road of going to a practitioner and they want to do it themselves. I would strongly recommend something like this after they've watched the film. And there's also another book that shows all about the science behind, the sugar and what it does to your system and all the rest of it. So, fantastic. There's heaps of resources out there. So, educate yourself and,
I think it's good because there's a lot of people working towards, getting it out there and informing people of the importance in being mindful of the choices of food we make. And I thank you, Maddie, for the work you do and also for your time today and letting us know exactly where sugar is. And I didn't know 4 grams is 1 teaspoon, everyone. That's if anything you don't remember, 4 grams, 1 teaspoon, and adults should be having maximum of 6 to 9, and 3 to preteens is around 3 to 6 teaspoons.
3 to 6,
and under 3 is 0.
0.
But you can have your fruit. Give your kids their fruit. That's always good to have.
Absolutely. Make some smoothies or make your own little ice creams and things like that. It's not that hard.
Super easy. Yeah. Thank you for your time again, Maddie, and thank you for tuning in for another episode of Salubrious Skin with Dr. Irene.
Have a good day.
Bye.